Hey, Mike, we're live. And it's good to know that you're live because you've been battling COVID.
I have, and I think today I'm feeling tons better. Yesterday, my head was mud.
Was it?
Uh, yeah, oh, it was bad. Much better right now.
Good. And, if anybody's wondering, if that is a snake or what that is behind Mike, I think,
Right there.
Mike, yeah, Mike's not in his usual place because he's trying to get over
Because I'm isolating still.
you're trying to get over the COVID.
So yeah, I'm basically been well for about 4 days. I lived down here in my music studio. So 10 feet over there, there's a drum set. 10 feet over there, there's 5 microphones, amps. There's a big cab over there. A cab is a cabinet full of speakers. Um, yeah, it's so. I mean, every once in a while, I take a little break and I go jam on the drum set for a while.
So, wait a minute. Is that your like ideal thing where you're like living in a studio?
No, no, this is not ideal. This is not ideal at all. On the upside, this is it's an old building, and this is the original planning department for the city of Bremerton. And so it's got
Oh.
really cool men's and women's room down here, and I've got a big counter with a sink in it, and I mean it's pretty good. No shower down here, which is
Mhm.
kind of a limitation, but
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. We should probably get to InfoSec and
we should.
stop just
Yeah.
talking about you. So, oh, worth knowing because of the holiday coming up, we already did security awareness training. It was on Tuesday, so the next one's not next week, but the week after.
Right.
And we didn't do this last week because company was doing offsite planning, which is partially explaining Mike's COVID. Well, sort of. It was more that he's in a
Not
band.
really.
It's more really that he's in a band.
Hmm.
So all you kids out
You
there,
cannot trust bass players. That's
don't
yeah.
don't join a band. All right. And I know you have a lot you want to talk about this week, Mike.
Hmm.
Keep it within the guardrails.
Okay. All right. So first thing, I thought this was really interesting. We've all noticed that CISA is putting out warning bulletins with regularity now. And what I've said that this is better than just expecting the private sector to share all the information. And what they give us is sometimes actionable, but more often than not, it's about a scary thing that might happen with some recommendations that are always the same things we should be doing. There's nothing really new that they recommend. What people are saying, is that they're getting alert fatigue from CISA, that they don't know how seriously to take things.
Mhm.
So, we're ending up where something important might get ignored, which is something that in our business we deal with all the time, but now it's at an institutional level.
So, I mean, this is the boy who cried wolf story, right? The
Yeah.
DHS agency that cried wolf. I don't know though. I don't or or cried wolf 20 times. I don't but like I don't know. Like, sometimes you get all these warnings. And remember, this happened a ton after 9/11, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden there were terrorism warnings at this mall and that mall and this mall.
Yeah.
And some of them turned out to be bogus and some of them turned out, you found out years later, no, that was actually real intelligence, and
They
because
had
of the
intel.
warning there, something bad didn't happen. And one of the things we don't know from CISA is, are bad things not happening, or is CISA or Microsoft or somebody else stopping? I don't know. I do think the combined FBI, NSA, CISA, that their intel, are the real deal, and that they're trying to communicate without telling us how they came to know, what it is.
Okay, that's fair enough. But most of the others don't have that same imprimatur, right? I mean, you're talking about the one that had it was a combination NSA, FBI, and the Five Eyes intelligence agencies,
Mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah,
So, but on the other
Canada,
hand,
even Canada.
who knew?
Who knew?
Um, on the other hand, Health and Human Services, okay, not CISA, but CISA probably had a hand in this. They're warning about cyber groups linked to Russian intelligence agencies. And they're saying to watch out for these specific groups. And they name off a bunch of gangs, okay, which all have these weird names.
Mhm.
Now, that's true, but what differently would you do to prevent being hit by these state level actors? Does that information really help you?
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, and speaking of ransomware gangs, I mean, I read in the blast this week, that the sanctions are hurting the ability of ransomware gangs to do their business.
Hmm.
Can't use credit cards. Crypto exchanges are now illegal to use for extortion payments. Ransomware events are decreasing in frequency right now.
Hmm.
The other thing that was in the blast this week is that the Conti ransomware operation has sort of shut down,
Hmm.
split into smaller groups.
Yeah. So true and true. So federal policy is having an effect on these gangs' ability to continue operating, and they're trying to compensate. So eventually, there will be enough division inside these gangs from the money drying up that it could get ugly. When they say that the number of ransomware events is going down as a result of the sanctions,
Mhm.
I believe that. I also believe that they're going to develop workarounds. Okay. The gang hasn't gone away. It's more that the affiliations are changing within the criminal ecosystem of Russia to figure out how to keep up revenue.
Yeah, revenue. That's an interesting way to look at it. It's funny.
Yeah.
Actually, my wife and I are in the middle of watching Tokyo Vice, which is about the criminal gangs in Japan,
Yakuza. Yeah.
and they're all talking about their revenue streams. And there's actually a part where the CEO of one of the Yakuza gangs says, "Let's talk about new revenue streams." It all sounds like a corporation, right? Which I
Hmm.
guess isn't that far from the truth.
Yeah. Um, so since we're talking business now, a couple of interesting points in business. The insurance exclusions are getting real, and corporations are getting sued for crappy controls. Okay, two cases in point. Okta and Aerojet. Okay, remember what happened to Okta? They were compromised, and their authentication products were potentially at risk. Apparently, only a few customers were affected, but they're accused of false and misleading statements, including that it did not disclose and then downplayed the severity of that data breach. So this is a class action suit. That's mainly because they handled the incident communication poorly. That's really what they're being accused of. And then Aerojet, which is a company that I actually did some work for with Fred Langston back in early 90s. They've been hit with a False Claims Act, right? This is a government act that says you can't lie to us about your compliance. When we say you have to meet requirements and you say you've met them, you better be telling us the truth. Okay. And that's because a whistleblower inside the company tipped off the government that they were not compliant with the requirements that they claimed they were. So this is another lever for the government to pull. The market driver, okay, the carrot of being secure in order to do business with the government because they spend a lot of money. And then there's the stick of the False Claims Act if you lie about it.
Yeah, I mean, on that insurance issue, I saw that the cyber insurance, the article was cyber insurance policies may not cover phishing attack funds diversion,
Hmm.
which I read as business email compromise. It was, about the wire payments. Somebody
Yeah.
sent a wire to a criminal. The other one thing along these lines was that operational technology security put utilities at risk of not being able to raise funds through bonds, and they've become a credit risk. Was that Fitch Ratings that said that? I mean, what?
It was one of the, I think it was Fitch. But yeah, again, that's another case of using business drivers to effect change, right? The threat of your water utility becoming inoperable wasn't enough to get you to increase support for security. So now, if you don't, your ability to raise funds will be impacted, not by the government, by the private sector and the financial ecosystem of the country.
Hmm, I guess capitalism's working for cybersecurity. Oh, anyway, I know you wanted to talk about surveillance in the context of what's happened with current events.
Yeah. All right. So there's one current event on everybody's mind right now. Okay. This has sucked all the air out of everyone's life for the last 72 hours. Here's a couple of tidbits before I get to the point. So Google is being urged to stop collecting phone location data before Roe versus Wade is overturned, as it will be. Obviously, because data like that can be and has been shown to be used in identifying who is, for example, showing up at Planned Parenthood. I'm not sure if Google is going to do that or not. Also, Amazon is hosting a system that collects biometric data as part of a pretty controversial DHS surveillance program. And they're being asked not to do that, which I believe they will ignore, right?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon isn't collecting the data and sharing with the government. They're just hosting the system for DHS and AWS. mean, it doesn't really sound like there's a reason for them to stop doing that.
Yeah.
There's a reason to bug DHS not to do it, but I don't know that that's going to be successful either.
Mm-mm. So, which brings me to the point I wanted to make today, which has to do with domestic terrorism. Now, we all know that Congress is too dysfunctional to take up a rational conversation about the easy availability of weapons and what happens when they're in the hands of violent or sick people. Okay. Set all your policy feelings on that aside. Let's view this through the lens of InfoSec and the way that we do our work and see where that intersects. Okay. So here's what we say in InfoSec: you manage risk by addressing the likelihood of a bad event by putting preventive controls in place, okay, to decrease the probability of one of those events. Once you've exhausted your ability to buy down risk through prevention, you focus on detection and response as a way to manage impact, to minimize impact.
Okay, I see where you're going with that. I mean, you're going to say prevention has failed. I don't think anybody could argue it hasn't. And as a result, monitoring is going to get, you know, going to get cranked way up.
Not just the monitoring. I mean, think this is surveillance. So we find out time after time when one of these events occurs that the perpetrator left behind all kinds of breadcrumbs and telegraphed in one way or another what was going to happen. So yes, prevention has failed, right? Obviously.
And
And
and now we need surveillance to compensate. Ugh.
yeah, but it's worse than just that. You know, if you fast forward this, okay, Congress wouldn't be able to pass laws on this type of surveillance either. Okay, they're not going to touch it. Nor will they expand the existing authorities that came after 9/11 for this purpose. Remember all the metadata scraping, phone
Yep.
metadata, right? So what we're left with is this: gobs of applications are out there for broad social media surveillance, geofencing, sentiment analysis. Okay, they're all being sold to state and local law enforcement. So the surveillance will not have statutory guardrails and will likely be conducted by local law enforcement without oversight. This is not a good place to land, and that's what's coming.
Oof, that does not make me feel good.
Hmm?
I mean, I guess, I'm conflicted. I want privacy and I want security, and more those are looking mutually exclusive.
Did you just paraphrase Ben Franklin?
um, uh, Boy, we could go on and on about this, but we're about out of
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Give people the threats and vulns that they come for.
Okay. Well, there's that HHS warning about the state-affiliated ransomware and espionage gangs, and that
Hmm.
is good to read.
Hmm.
There's a DHS PowerPoint presentation that you can get, and it's worth reading. Also, there's a piece on how these actors are not using 0 days so much as they did. Now they're going after unpatched vulnerabilities preferentially. So patch what you have facing the internet. Right now, F5 big IP devices and VMware are being actively exploited. There is a critical vulnerability in WordPress that can result in the takeover of your site. Zoom has a zero-click vulnerability that lets a user spoof another user and insert a message into a conversation, potentially with a poison link in it. So you got to update
Hmm.
Zoom. Also update Chrome because Chrome.
I think I've updated Chrome 5 times this week.
Yeah.
All right, we're out of time. Kicker, the last thing, the thing that makes everybody laugh. We need that. We need that this week. Do you have something?
Well, let's give it a shot. I mean, the one I like is the Australia digital driver's license. So this was widely touted as being tough to forge. Turns out it's pretty easy to forge. The process to do this takes under an hour, doesn't require any special hardware or software, and will generate fake IDs that pass inspection using the electronic verification system used by police and participating venues. So, all of this, despite the assurances that security was a key priority for this newly created digital driver's license system.
Uh-huh. So
Mhm.
that means in Australia you can buy alcohol, as soon as you can make one of these licenses. What do you think a 12-year-old can do it?
It's reasonably accurately funny.
All right, everybody. Have a good long weekend.
Hmm.
You know, we do work in a company and certainly a business with a lot of veterans. Remember also while you're barbecuing what Memorial Day is for.
That's right.
And I know saying that right now after a very heavy week or in the middle of a very heavy week is tough, but we can learn from our past and we can have a better future.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.